Two of history's greatest commanders were about to collide one final time. 2 years earlier, at Issus, Alexander had crushed Darius III's army. Darius fled the field, abandoning his mother, wife, and children to the Macedonians. He never accepted defeat. He began rebuilding a new imperial army. Levies poured in from Bactria, Scythia, India, and dozens of eastern satrapies. This time Darius chose the battlefield himself, the plain near Gaugamela. Unlike Issus, this ground was wide, flat, and ideal for cavalry. Persian engineers spent weeks leveling the terrain, clearing rocks and brush. Darius wanted nothing to obstruct his scythed chariots or massed horsemen. These chariots had blades fixed to their wheels, meant to shred infantry. 15 war elephants were also brought from India, a new terror weapon. Ancient sources wildly inflate Persian numbers, some claiming over 1 million men. Modern historians estimate a more realistic 50,000 to 100,000 Persian troops. Alexander commanded roughly 47,000 soldiers, badly outnumbered, but far better drilled. He crossed the Euphrates and Tigris rivers almost entirely unopposed. Persian cavalry under Mazaeus watched, but chose not to contest the crossing. On September 20th, 331 BC, a lunar eclipse passed over the army. The seer Aristander cleverly read the omen as a sign of victory. Scouts soon reported the massive Persian host was camped at Gaugamela. Alexander halted his army and rested it for 4 full days. Parmenion urged a surprise night attack against the larger Persian force. Alexander refused, reportedly saying he would not steal his victory. He wanted a clear, undeniable win to claim legitimacy as king of Asia. The night before battle, Alexander slept soundly while Parmenion stayed anxious. At dawn, he sacrificed to the gods and arranged his final battle lines. Everyone sensed this single day would decide the fate of an empire. At sunrise, 2 enormous armies faced each other across the open plain. Persian lines stretched to the horizon, raising thick clouds of dust. Alexander advanced his army at an angle, shifting steadily to the right. This drew his men away from the ground Persia had specially leveled. Darius matched the movement, sliding his own lines to counter it. Persian heavy cavalry, Scythians and Bactrians, surged against Alexander's right flank. A brutal cavalry melee erupted almost immediately on that side. Darius then unleashed his scythed chariots straight at the Macedonian center. Macedonian light infantry met them with javelins and arrows, killing many drivers. Trained soldiers also opened lanes, letting the surviving chariots pass harmlessly through. The chariot charge, Persia's signature weapon, achieved almost nothing of value. It was an early sign the battle's momentum was quietly shifting. On the right, Persian numbers nearly overwhelmed Alexander's cavalry reserves. Timely reinforcements from his second line kept the flank from collapsing. Crucially, Persia's own sideways shift opened a gap in its center. Alexander spotted this gap almost the instant it appeared. On the Macedonian left, Parmenion faced a far more desperate fight. Mazaeus's powerful Persian cavalry was steadily grinding down the Thessalian horsemen. Some Persian riders even broke through toward the Macedonian baggage camp. There they found and briefly freed members of Darius's captured family. The camp's reserve troops fought them off before real damage was done. Amid the chaos, Alexander stayed focused entirely on that widening gap. His companion cavalry began forming into their famous wedge formation. Morale among Persia's mixed, multi-ethnic troops was already starting to waver. Macedonian soldiers, by contrast, trusted their king and held their discipline. The stage was set for the single decisive charge of the day. Alexander drove his companion cavalry straight into the gap near Darius. It was a focused, disciplined strike, not a wild, reckless charge. He personally led from the front, driving deep into the Persian center. Darius's royal guard scattered under the sudden, violent impact. According to ancient accounts, Darius's own chariot driver was struck down. Panic spread instantly through the king's household troops and bodyguards. Darius made the fateful choice to flee the battlefield himself. Historians still debate whether this was cowardice or shrewd self-preservation. Word of the king's flight shattered morale across the Persian center. But Alexander's victory was not yet secure. His left flank was collapsing. Mazias had nearly surrounded Parmenions' exhausted Thessalian cavalry. A desperate messenger reached Alexander, begging him to turn back and help. He faced an agonizing choice: chase down Darius or save his own army. Alexander chose duty over glory and turned his cavalry around. On the way back, his men fought through fleeing Persian raiders near the camp. It cost him valuable time, but he pressed on toward Parmenion. When Alexander's cavalry arrived, the balance on the left shifted again. Mazaeus' men, already hearing of the center's collapse, began losing heart. He ordered a controlled, disciplined withdrawal rather than a full rout. At the shattered Persian center, panic had become total and irreversible. Thousands of soldiers threw down their weapons and fled in every direction. The Macedonian phalanx pushed forward against a crumbling, leaderless enemy. Command and coordination on the Persian side had completely broken down. Alexander's exhausted troops realized, almost in disbelief, that the battle was won. Parmenions' flank finally stabilized, and the Macedonian army held as one. Gaugamela had turned from a battlefield into the collapse of an empire. By the battle's end, the great Persian army had simply disintegrated. Alexander immediately set off in pursuit of the fleeing Darius. The king escaped eastward toward Ecbatana, beginning a desperate, days-long chase. Macedonian soldiers seized enormous quantities of gold, silver, and treasure. Ancient sources report Persian losses in the tens of thousands. Macedonian casualties, by comparison, were remarkably and famously light. Mazaeus withdrew in good order and soon surrendered the city of Babylon. Its fall opened the door to Susa and the imperial heartland beyond. Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid kings, fell soon after. Its capture was deeply symbolic. The empire's spiritual heart had collapsed. Meanwhile, Darius's authority crumbled further as he fled with a shrinking retinue. His own satrap Bessus of Bactria began plotting against him. Bessus eventually seized Darius, wounded him, and abandoned him by the roadside. Alexander's advanced scouts found the Persian king dying, betrayed by his own men. Alexander gave Darius a royal funeral, honoring him as a defeated sovereign. This gesture helped frame Alexander as the rightful heir to the Persian throne. Bessus declared himself king, but almost no one recognized his claim. Alexander soon marched east specifically to hunt Bessus down as well. Gaugamela was far more than a military victory. It was a political turning point. Alexander now openly styled himself as the new king of Asia. The battle effectively ended over 2 centuries of Achaemenid Persian rule. Military historians still study Gaugamela as a masterpiece of tactical execution. Alexander's discipline stood out most, choosing his army's safety over personal glory. The battle also exposed the fragility of a vast, multi-ethnic imperial army. Gaugamela remains one of history's most decisive and studied battles.